Hello and welcome to No Automation Challenge. Between the episodes, I made some more aluminium, made hatch upgrades on heat exchangers, and finally got trophy for rubber plates. And now, into today's mission. It's time to tackle silicon processing. I first need to make it, then purify into high purity version. High purity silicon can then be processed into wafers, and I want to complete the automation quest. Balls cut to minimum 14 wafers, so I will do it about 36 times, since then I'll probably have 8 stacks of wafers. One bowl takes 32 dust worth of high purity silicon, so I need 18 stacks. One silicon is 3 silicon dioxide dust, so 3 flint dust. That is 3456 flint. Gravel is made by hammering cobblestones. Then it is sifted for flint. One stack of gravel is almost 4 stacks of flint. Then macerate and store in a drawer. Silicon dioxide reduction is done in an arc furnace. Since I need to make a lot of silicon and the recipe is rather long, I will do 4 arc furnaces. MV-tiered because I can use aluminium. Fill them with air and started making coke. 2 coke dust for 1 silicon means 2304 coke dust. Coking produces a lot of coal tar and coal gas, and I know I will need it later, so I stored it in drums. Of course, waiting for all of it to be made is ineffective. I started centrifuging for silicon dioxide and then reducing to silicon. Pulled some of it out to complete a quest, and that's really all. I will stay here and make the rest of silicon. Two stacks of silicon took about 5 minutes to make, so this all took surprisingly less than an hour. But now something that will take more time. Purification. I need to roast silicon with chlorine, distill, and roast with zinc. High purity silicon is produced, and zinc chloride is recycled. As I need 4 buckets of chlorine per silicon, I will need a large amount of it. I can still use electrolytic cell or electrolyzed salt, which is in this case the better option. I got enough chlorine for 1 batch and started purification marathon. First 8 high purity silicon was done and zinc was recycled. I took the silicon and began getting seed crystals. And the cycle was repeated again. And then I got enough chlorine to do 2 batches at a time. And so I did. While zinc chloride was being recycled from 1 batch, the second batch was roasting and distilling. 2 electrolyzers made it faster, and I could split it in half thanks to graduated cylinders. And again, that's all of it. There's nothing interesting about it. I just roasted silicon, refilled autoclave with distilled water, and recycled zinc chloride. And I worked until I had 18 stacks of high purity silicon. I will need to melt silicon to make bowls, so I need a fluid extractor. They work pretty fast, but I will make 2 just in case. And now for the main step in wafer processing. Crystallization. Done in a crystallizer, needs quartz crucible and seed crystals. That's why I made them, and as for quartz crucible, it's just vacuuming molten silicon dioxide. Crystallization takes 7 minutes per 1 bowl, and as I need 36 of them, 1 crystallizer seems like a bad idea, so why not 8? 8 new MV machines mean more power consumption, and they would consume my entire current production. So 2 more steam turbines are required, and 2 heat exchangers for steam. I need to upgrade my power spine with an 8x wire, since now I produce 64 amps of LV power. And back to silicon, I put the seed crystals into crystallizers and fill them with molten silicon so it starts crystallizing. Bowls need to be refined in a zone refiner. As the recipe is rather fast and not energy intensive, 1 LV zone refiner is okay. Somehow my wire to crystallizers burned, even though it should have been enough. As the time has reset, I can do the next machine for silicon. Cutting machine. Cutting also takes a lot of time, so 4 of them should be enough. Silicon bowls were finally done. I refined them and put them into cutting machines. But you need ultra pure water for cutting. Good thing I made a setup for germanium earlier. Imagine if I saw that cobalt recipe. You saw how I did it before, so no reason to show it again. But this time, after I got some, I filled the cutting machines. The first cycle ended, and I finally had some silly wafers. Of course, you need to process them some more, but no multitasking here. Just kidding, I need waffle treatment acid, a mix of hydrochloric and hydrofluoric acid. Of course, it can't be made in an LV mixer, so I made an MV1. Acid washing is done in a chemical bath, so you can guess what I did. I was doing random stuff, cutting wafers, making waffle acid, looking how wires burn and replacing them. And I did the last consumable chemical in wafer processing, silicon dioxide slurry. And the machine to use it, polishing machine. 2 of them, because why not? Even after doing all of this, I was still not done with wafers, but then I skipped time and got 8 stacks of them. First the acid, then the polish, and then after some more waiting, the stack was polished and I got my first silly waffles. Now time for automation trophy. Silly wafers are done, so time to do something with them. Gravel is sifted, macerated, centrifuged and arc furnaced. Coke is sent from outside and carbon monoxide is voided in a smokestack. Silicon is then purified by roasting with chlorine, distilling and roasting with zinc. Zinc chloride is electrolyzed and high purity silicon is sent into further processing. It is melted, crystallized into balls, refined and cut into wafers. Seed crystals are sent into crystallizers and wafers are treated with acid. Wafer treatment acid is made on site with hydrochloric and hydrofluoric acid. Acid treated wafers are then polished and stored in a drawer. Ultra pure water for silicon dioxide slurry and cutting is made on site with MV method. It is sent into the cutting machine and silicon dioxide slurry mixer. And as a bonus, acids. Sulfuric acid is made from pyrite and sulfur and bonded iron are stored. Hydrochloric acid is made from hydrogen, chlorine and water. Hydrofluoric acid is made from fluoride and sulfuric acid which is looped in the setup. And as for the nitric acid, air and oxygen are reacted in a reaction furnace, cooled, roasted and mixed with water into nitric acid and nitric oxide rich air. This is MV Electronics, more components and new materials. As they need to be conductive, gold and silver are used. I already got silver, but what about gold? First, you need to mine some raw electrum. Then you have to mix the dust with mercury. Gold amalgam is then roasted to separate it. Roasting recipe is rather long, so I should make more roasters. I place them and process the electrum. While the gold is produced, let's talk about the rest of the components. Capacitors just need polyethylene and aluminium. Transistors need silicon wafers, tin wire and polyethylene. They are combined alongside diodes and resistors into op-amps. Diodes are now also easier because I can use silicon and polyethylene. The last part of op-amps are gold wires from newly made gold. Soon enough I had a stack of them. For MV regulators, I need to make Zener diodes. For them, I need to dope silicon with any group 15 element. For doping, I will use phosphorus, as is probably the easiest one. It was autoclaved with water into vapor, then distilled and solidified into high purity phosphorus. It was then used to dope wafers. With doped wafers, I made a stack of Zener diodes. I don't have every component yet, but I can start making circuits. LV circuits are really cheap. Just some resistors, diodes, wires and op-amps. and it's 6 per craft. MV circuits are 1-to-1 with LV, and some more resistors and diodes. I also need MV regulators, which are op-amps and Zener diodes. I made 48 of them to use it all for circuits. With that batch, I made 1.5 stack of MV circuits. And now time for HV circuits. It's MV circuits, HV regulator, inductors and diodes. For regulators, I need more capacitors and transistors. I need to make plastic boards and protectors, which are just polymer plate and copper. Protectors are made of Zener diodes, heatsinks, fuses and capacitors. Fuses are made of acid-washed silica, which is silicon dioxide reacted with sulfuric acid. And heatsinks are just an aluminium plate with liquid tin. After assembling the protector chips and HV regulators, they need to be sealed. Some liquid polyethylene and aluminium in a vacuum chamber and HV regulators are done. For inductors, I need high purity iron. Iron is turned into iron pentacarbonyl, purified and roasted into high purity version. Then it is roasted into iron oxide and smelted with nickel or manganese into zinc ferrite ingots. The ingots are then extruded into rings and combined with wire to make inductors. And that's how I got half a stack of HV circuits. I can also make MV superconductors, and I need magnesium and boron for them. I roasted some magnesite for magnesia. To retrieve magnesium from it, I have to electrolyze it in magnesium chloride and rock salt. I made magnesium chloride by reacting magnesia with chlorine and carbon and centrifuged potash for rock salt. And then I got magnesium. To make boron, I need to roast borax into sodium tetraborate. Then wash it with distilled water for borate liquor. The liquor is reacted with hydrochloric acid to produce boric acid. Boric acid is roasted into boron trioxide and reacted with magnesium into amorphous boron, which needs to be macerated into boron. I got some first boron, and now it needs to be mixed with magnesium. Magnesium diboride needs to be canned in a silver pipe. Canned MdB is then smelted in nitrogen in a tube furnace. The only way to get nitrogen is pressure swing adsorber. After building it, I finally have a good way to produce oxygen and nitrogen. I made some nitrogen and smelted the cans. Similarly to manganese phosphide, the superconductor needs to be cooled. But this time I need to use nitrogen. The process is the same as for oxygen, but with MV compressor. Liquid nitrogen later, I got first batch of MV superconductors.
And don't forget to watch Family Guy, Sunday nights at Brine.
This is rather optional for this tier, but it will help with chlorine in the future. First, I need to make a fluid rig to drill the brine. The brine can be far away from the base, so I better make some batteries. I first checked if I have brine vein under my base, and lo and behold, there is. Now I need evaporation poles. I will make them with coils, so they work in the night. They also should have access to the sky, so the sun can help with evaporation. For some reason, I made the default J size, when I could make the max size and do it much faster, even without coils. Coils were made and placed in the pools, and the pools were connected to power. Now I can start the evaporation. There's a montage, I forgot to record it. But I remember the rig is in my base, so I can connect it straight into my power grid and not use batteries. And I remembered to record what to do after evaporating. Twice concentrated brine needs to be reacted with hydrochloric acid to extract boric acid. Then, boron-free brine is reacted with soda ash to separate lithium carbonate. Lithium-free brine is chlorinated and vacuumed with steam. Impure bromine, resulting from this step, is centrifuged into bromine and a chance for iodine. I processed the last batch of very concentrated brine and got 16 buckets of bromine. There's no need for it now, but it will be very important later. Brine is pumped and evaporated twice. Salt is sent into electrolyzers and a mixer for salt water. Salt water is used to make sodium hydroxide, and salt is electrolyzed to produce chlorine and sodium. The second step also produces potassium carbonate, carnallite and calcium chloride. I don't do anything with potassium carbonate, calcium chloride is electrolyzed into calcium and chlorine, and carnallite is mixed with water and crystallized. Magnesium chloride is electrolyzed into magnesium and chlorine, and rock salt solution is distilled, melted, and electrolyzed into potassium and chlorine. Very concentrated brine is reacted with hydrochloric acid to produce boric acid. Boric acid is roasted into boron trioxide and roasted with magnesium into amorphous boron. Amorphous boron is macerated and sent into storage, and magnesia is electrolyzed back into magnesium. Boron-free brine is reacted with soda ash to produce lithium carbonate, which I don't process into lithium. Lithium-free brine is chlorinated and reacted with steam to produce impure bromine. Impure bromine is centrifuged into bromine and iodine. Sorry for the wait, I found out I have free will and played Witcher 3 and Heroes 3. I am nearly finished with those, but I don't promise I will get better. For the next episode, I'm planning on getting to HV and making PTFE, and maybe something else. I don't know. And that greenhouse glass? I needed over 1,000 of cyan dye, and that wasn't fun. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next episode of SuSy No Automation Challenge.